Hello everyone and welcome to a quick tutorial on creating your own Talking Tom style game using the new template at AppyGEN.net. Today we're going to focus on using the DAZ 3D software to animate our character and export the animation into multiple frames that we will later import into our AppyGEN game content. Now, unless you're a 3D artist and you would like to make your own models, you're going to have to buy or download free models. So let's get to it. This is the official DAZ 3D shop. Here you can find all kinds of models. You can also find animations, poses, everything you might need at decent prices. If you buy the models from the official site, you also get a free software that helps you install the assets. You can also download them from elsewhere on the internet. And this way you get a zip file, just like this one that we got from this site where we found the baby model for our talking baby game. We also found some interesting outfits and other graphic assets that are available for download for free. You should definitely check these out regardless of the tutorial because there's always models to be found on the internet and you can use whichever ones you like. So, assuming you've already installed DAZ 3D on your computer, you should get a folder on your computer named DAZ 3D. Inside it, you'll find another folder named Studio, then another folder named My Library. So that's where you need to go and copy the contents of the zip file you just got. More specifically, there should be a folder in there called Runtime. That's the folder you need to put in your library. Just like that. There we go. Okay, so now that we have our new model in our DAZ 3D library, let's start DAZ 3D and create our first scene. This is the DAZ 3D interface, and although it can be a bit scary at first, it's actually quite easy to master. So, right here on the left, you have your library, which is where we put the baby model. In the center, you have the viewport, so let's start with the viewport. Let's set the viewport settings to fit the dimensions required by AppyGEN. In order to do that, you're going to have to click on Render Settings. Make sure you're in editor mode while you do that. Select 3D Light as your engine, then go to the General tab. In the General tab, Constraint Proportions will be on. You need to turn it off. Then go up to pixel size and make sure it's 480 by 800. Next, we're going to actually create our model or add it to our scene by going to the library on the left, clicking on Figures, and selecting our model. We're also going to add a little hair to our model, and there you go. If you ask me, that model looks absolutely ready. Next order of business is to create a camera that will make sure that the scene stays the same while the camera moves. So let's go over here and click on the Create New Camera icon. You can name it whatever you want. I'm going to name it Camera 1 and then click Accept. Then move over here on the top of the viewport and instead of Perspective View, select Camera 1. Alright, there we go. Now we're on the Camera 1 view. Let's click on Front and then on this button to center our character and zoom out a little bit. Rotate the camera using these controls until it looks good enough. You can imagine the viewport as your mobile device, your phone, or your tablet, and you're going to need to position the camera based on that, because that's how the character is going to look for the end user who's going to be playing the game on their screen. Let's see, yes, I would say that this looks good enough. So now I'm going to go over here and change to perspective view to make sure that I don't move my camera any further. You can play with the perspective view however you want because the final animation is going to use the camera view. The scene is set up now, but the character doesn't look very natural with his arms spread out. So now we're going to have to go into the library under Pose, and let's find a better pose for this model. Let's see, we're going to need a better pose for this model. Now, poses can be downloaded or purchased, and usually models come with a few poses built in, and you can use those. So you can go over here, you select a pose, and you make sure that your character is selected in the scene view, and you just double click. And this looks pretty good for a base scene. So now let's go ahead and save this file. We don't want to lose our changes. Click on File, Save As, Scene, and let's name it Base Scene. Now, using the AppyGEN template to make our game, we have to add at least 4 required animations, which are the intro animation, which is the character just introducing themselves, saying hi, or maybe just coming out of the screen. Then we need the idle animation, which is the character standing around waiting. Then we need a talking animation, and finally we need a listening animation. Here we're going to focus on the idle animation so you can replicate it to make as many animations as you want in the future. But keep in mind, you require at least 4 animations, and you can add 6 extra animations. And that could be the character dancing, moving around, playing, whatever you like to add to your game. So let's open up our base scene, and what we're going to do right here is save the base scene again, but this time we will name it idle animation. That way we can keep our base scene clean and use it again for our next animation. So save the idle animation scene, and then we can start working on it. There are a few ways that you can use Daz 3D to animate your character. You can use a plugin called Puppeteer, or you can do the animation manually by moving each leg in every frame. We went through this in the Academy lesson, but in this tutorial we're going to use Annie blocks. An Annie block is basically a recorded animation that you can apply to compatible models. What that means is an animation for an adult probably won't work for a child, or an animation for a dog wouldn't work on a human. And Annie blocks can be purchased all over the web and on the Daz 3D store, but for now, you can use the few free Annie blocks that you get built into the software, and that's what we're going to use to animate the character. So let's go over here in the bottom and click on Animator. Make sure that your character is selected in the Scene tab. And then on the bottom of the Animate tab, you can browse all the Annie blocks that you have in your library. We're going to go over here to Gestures, and this is how it works. As you can see, our character does a very smooth animation, and we can just drag and drop it. Simple as that. One important thing to consider though is the actual length of the Annie block. So you go over here to Timeline and you make sure that the total number of frames is 100 or less, because 100 is the maximum number of frames that you can upload to AppyGEN. And also keep in mind that more frames means bigger size for your APK down the line. So if someone were to install your application on a mobile phone, it might not fit. And this is very likely to happen on older phones that have less storage. But don't worry, because next on this tutorial, we're going to learn about how we can lower the size of our animations. Okay, so now we have our first animation ready, and that's the intro animation. So let's go ahead and export it to PNG frames that we can actually upload to AppyGEN as content for our game. Next, we're going to click over here on Render Settings. We're going to make sure the pixel size and constraining proportions are the same as before. In Render Type, change to Image Series, because we're going to save these as separate files. In Series Base, you can write the name of your animation. In this case, it's Intro. Then select the folder in Series Path. Change Auto Headlamp to When No Scene Lights. Alternatively, you can just place lights in the scene and you can select Never. And that's it. Click on Render. So, Now that we have all of our animation frames, we need to compress those frames because the maximum file size is currently 60 kilobytes. And as you can see, these files that we just exported are pretty big. So we're going to use a cool little software called PNGoo. It's really effective at compressing large PNG files without compromising their quality. Now I'm going to show you how you can use it. Select all of your animation frames, drag them into the program, tick Output to same directory, then click on Color Settings. Here you can fiddle with the colors. You can see here the original size and the compressed size. If the compressed size is lower than 60 kilobytes, then you're good to go. But if it's not, you can change the colors from 256 to 128, and you'll see that the compressed size has gotten much smaller. So, whenever you get under 60 kilobytes by fiddling with the settings, you're ready to go. Now, when the compression tool is done, all you have to do is go to your content page and then add all the frames to your animation and click Save Content. And that's basically it. As you can see, we've made a very smooth animation in just under a few minutes.